Welcome back to Matt the Groundhopper channel and what is my new weekly podcast called Chewing the Fat, where myself and a guest are going to be discussing a topic or subject within football. And this week, the first podcast is going to be about the Champions League. Got a new format starting this current season, and to be more precise, why I absolutely hate the Champions League. And I'm sure I'm not alone. Let's take a look. Okay, so I've got my first guest today on my first podcast, and that is Lee from Football League Adventures. Thank you for being my first guest. I'll put a link up to your channel up on the screen now, so make sure you check out Lee, and also you do your own podcasts with different subjects.
Yep.
So Lee, today we're going to be talking about the Champions League.
Yep.
Let me get your view in a minute. So I'm going to give you a very, very brief overview of the Champions League and where we're at now. So Champions League, I've got some notes here which I want to quickly read off. Champions League started, or the European Cup as it was then, started in 1955, and the format didn't change right up to about 1991, where it was just the champions, straight knockout, round one, right to the final, good cup football like you get in the FA Cup now, yeah? Things started to change in 1991, so they didn't have quarterfinals. They went to two groups of four, and the top two teams that went through to the final. And it was like that for a couple of seasons. And they introduced semi-finals. So there's no quarterfinals. So into group stages, then to semi-finals. And then things radically changed in 1994, where they had four groups of four, 16 teams, but only 24 teams were invited for a couple of years, where in the coefficient rankings in UEFA, countries 1 to 24 qualified, and if you was 25 and below, so like Luxembourg champions or Latvia, they just basically were dumped into the UEFA Cup. So it wasn't even So it was like that for a couple of years. But then we had another radical overhaul in 97, 98, where basically you had six groups of four, all the champions come back in again, but for the first time you had second teams coming in from England, from some Italy, Spain. So it wasn't so much the European Cup anymore, the Champions League, because you had second place finishes from the domestic leagues coming in. And it stayed like that for a couple of years. And then in 1999, 2000, it is what the current format was last season, where you had eight groups of four, sort of 3 or 4 teams per country joining it. And obviously all the champions of the lower countries had to go through qualifying round to get to the group stage. That's where we're at. Obviously, it changed from the European Cup to the Champions League in 1992. And from next season, you've got this ridiculous one division of 36 teams where we're all going to play 8 games, heavily seeded, basically just to coerce the big teams to get through. So that's where we're at. I don't like the Champions League whatsoever. I wish it could go back to how it was, just being straightforward knockout football. I know it never will be like that again due to money. But I'm very much a football purist. I like the old-fashioned way. I would like to see an upset where you get like a Malmo or a team from Austria, Vienna, get through to the quarterfinals and beat Rangnick in the second round. So they have an off day, they're out. But the way it is now, they can have a couple of off days, but they're always going to come through in the end, especially for the group game. So that's I'll end with that for now. So tell me, what's your views on the Champions League? What it is up to last season and then going forward to next season. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I don't watch the Champions League. I fell out of love with the Champions League when they started adding third and fourth place into it. Even second, because then it wasn't the Champions League. Because to me, Champions League says it in the name. It should be the champions of your league go into that competition. And yeah, you're right. They changed it from the European Cup. There was nothing wrong with that name.
I've heard the European Cup actually.
Yeah, they did it to make it more marketable.
Yeah.
Basically, like, oh, Champions League. Yeah, we go with that. And yeah, I very rarely do I even catch the final when it's free on YouTube to watch. I think I caught the last 25 minutes of this season's one. And yeah, just I got bored.
Yeah, I think for me the group games are very boring. I don't watch any of them, so I really don't watch. I'll flick through the results, and that's all I get. But I mean, I'm not against European football. I love the idea of European football. For me,
Yeah,
the Champions League, this is my favourite time of year because you've got knockout rounds going on now in the qualifying rounds where you got like the Welsh champions playing the Lithuanian champions. I quite like that because
yeah,
it's knockout football and it's Jeopardy football. I just like Jeopardy football, and when you have all these
exactly.
group games, it's like it's just coercing away so the big nations will always get through. So especially this new format where it's a one group of 36 teams, the top eight go through, and then 9 to 24 of a playoff, and they go into the next round. But it's all going to be seeded, and they're all going to be playing. The top eight teams will be playing at seed two, seed three, seed four. So
Absolutely.
yeah, so they're going to be playing eight group games. They might have a couple of off days, but they're going to win 6 out of 8. So it's going to so every year you're going to have Real Madrid, Barcelona, PSG,
Yeah.
Bayern Munich, Man City. It's going to be the same every single year. So I thought it was bad last season, the format. Well, this season is just going to be appalling. And for me, it's a massive turn off. I mean, I don't know, I think you're just a few years younger than me, but I think it's a generational thing that anyone I know of my age, nobody likes the Champions League.
No,
But I suppose youngsters in their 18s, early 20s, they all seem to love the Champions League. And I'm sure in time there will be a European Super League. They seem to be all in favour of it.
yeah,
So that's where I'm at. With the it's appalling
yeah.
format, So,
It's an appalling way football's going. Like I said just before we started, that it's more money now than it is a sport. It's a business.
yeah,
So obviously UEFA, FIFA have thought, okay, so one way to combat the breakaway Super League is we do it as a Champions League. So that's what they've done. Was it the 36 teams?
36 into one group.
Yeah. So that they've done it as we do it as a league format, and hopefully that gain the popularity back, or what they hope that the magic of it again. But there's no magic in it anymore. It's you can probably say at the start of the competition you're going to have a Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, potentially PSG semi-final somewhere.
Yeah.
In that competition.
Yeah. I mean, when I look at some of the old results from years ago, you did get upsets in the first round. You'd have Barca losing. They'll lose in the first round to an Austrian or Swiss champion or a Norwegian champion, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that because if you want it to just be the big boys all the time, you might as well go to the NFL model in America and just have franchises because you need to have upsets. Even in European Cups, and I'm going to call it European Cups, I prefer that. In the European Cup, you need to have upsets. And why can't a team, champs from Sweden, get through to the quarterfinals? Why does it always have to be the same teams? And if we had the FA Cup this way, then there'd be no upsets. Because if you had loads of groups where, I'm a Gills fan, if Gillingham played Arsenal once, we might win. If we played them 5 times, we'd probably lose 4 out of 5. So if you just keep playing the big boys at the time, so if a one-off game or over 2 legs, you could have a chance of winning. It's the same with the champions of the lower nations. But yeah, it's you had some more random results and some smaller nations getting through to the quarterfinals or semi-finals back in the day. Red Star Belgrade was one that comes to mind. Marseille one year. But if you look at the champions from the last 10, 15 years, it's like the Premier League. It's the theme. It's the same teams pretty much winning it every year now. So they sort of share it amongst themselves. But yeah, so I despair really the Champions League. I just, I can see them making it even bigger to, to offset this Super League, which is sort of bearing down on them. I understand why they've done it, but so it doesn't mean I have to like it. Far from it. So, do you know anyone who likes this, by the way? European Cup was.
I mean, I've got that sort of group of friends. My generation. Let's say I'm a couple of years younger, but even they've fallen out of love with it, and that it's even though it's boring football to watch. There's no you don't get the big upsets anymore. Yeah, I mean, once in a blue moon you might get Celtic beating a Barcelona or a Bayern Munich, which really, when you think about it, is a big upset especially for Scottish football as well. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with the old format. Why they had to change it, I do not know, and I don't agree with it now going to fifth place teams as well
Yeah.
that just do not deserve to be around that competition at all.
Yeah, it's for me. Just I mean, it doesn't water it. For me, a football purist, it waters it down for me. It doesn't water down the brand, obviously, because obviously I get it. You know, a team finishing fifth in the Premier League is a much bigger draw than the Luxembourg champions. I get that. I completely get that.
Yeah.
But I just think you should have, back in the day, you had the European Cup, the Cup Winners' Cup, and the UEFA Cup, all straight format, straight knockout. I think it's just a lot more interest. A lot more interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cup competitions. And yeah, it's a shame, really, money, because they've got this new Club World Cup started where they're trying to get it off the ground for 32 nations, 32 teams next year.
Yeah.
I think is it next year they're trying to start?
It's end of this season.
Yeah, so another tournament with all the big. And
yeah.
I don't know really anyone's in favour of watching that. I mean, look, there'll be some young fans of Man City fans who will love all that. I'm sure they will. And if it's held in America, I think it's being held in the USA, isn't it? So I'm sure they'll love it. But it's more for tourists, really.
Absolutely.
Premier League, it's becoming like more. They're gearing more to tourism, a tourist fan, where they're charging £100 a ticket, but it's like London tourists. They go and watch Arsenal, Tottenham, as opposed to the everyday fan. Probably get that down at Brighton as well, like, you know. So being a bit of a destination, they're gearing for more tourist football fans. It's the same with this, I suppose, Champions League. But yeah, it's a shame how it goes, really. I just hope that the English League stays true and it doesn't start siphoning off teams to such a breakaway league as a Super League, which I'm sure will happen at some point. But
yeah, I think it's on the cards somewhere, because I think in the end the Premier League will just buckle and they get offered an obscene amount of money and they'll be like, we can't really say no to it. And then you'll find that the bigger clubs in the Premier League will start to slowly migrate that way, which would be a shame.
Yeah, and also as well, the extra games they've got this season coming up, they've already had to make away in the domestic calendars. I think they're dropping replays and things in the FA Cup, and to make them additional midweek slots because there's another 4 games they've got to play with the new format. So it's already affecting our football already in this country.
Yeah.
And presuming Italy and Spain as well, and Germany. But yeah, so it's already messing things up for clubs that are not even involved in the Champions League, and lower league clubs who like replays, and there's been a big debate about the replays and scrapping the replays, but it's just purely because of this, to remove space, to make space in the calendar so they can play these extra games. So very frustrating. So what's the outcome, Lee? What do we do? Do we boycott it? Do we stop watching?
I'm boycotting it.
Yeah.
I won't be watching it this season, as I won't be the next season or the season after that. I haven't got the interest. Not got the interest.
And while we're in Premier League, obviously you're a fan of a Premier League team. You said you've gone off Premier League a little bit as well. So I mean, obviously it's a different subject, but we'll talk about this quickly. So, I mean, again, without being too much of a moany fan, I don't really follow the Premier League. I'll look at the results. I look at the league tables and stuff, but I haven't watched Match of the Day for years. I can't remember the last time I sat and watched a live game on TV. I mean, this is weird from a ground hopper who I'll go and watch a game live at the ground, and I've got the grounds on my ground hopping channel. I will go to them grounds. I've been to a few already in the Premier League, so I'll chip all the grounds off purely to hit them targets on my list. But I don't really do Premier League football. I'm more sort of EFL and even non-league really as well. So.
I mean, I had a season ticket for Brighton last season. I've given it up this season because, for one, they put their prices up as well. But also, I just lost the love of the Premier League. Whereas, like you just said, ground hopping, the Championship down to even the Isthmian League that I go to quite a lot. You can see they want it more. There's that real drive for it. So this season it is all about the Championship, right down to non-league for me.
Is the because I'm a Gillingham fan. We've never been past the Championship was League One back then. We had 5 seasons in that league 20 years ago. Is the dream of being in the top league? Is the reality as good as the dream of being in the top? Because obviously Brighton are quite an established side now and obviously they were trying to get in there. I mean, there was in the old Division 1 back in the early 80s, but they dropped right down to League 2 or the old Division 4. Then they got relegated out of the league. But my point is, ask you as a Brighton fan, is it being in the Premier League there, is the reality not as good now as the dream of getting into the top league for all those years where you was trying to get into the Premier League?
Yeah, I mean, as it was like the dream was always to get there, and when we got there, it was like, right, we're here now, and the reality is we need to stay in this division. And it was a tough first season, and even a tough second season. But yeah, it's good. We're there. We're an established side. We're now, we're fighting to be a top 10 team, which we finished below Palace last season, which no one likes. So yeah, but it's nice to be there. But now it's what players can you bring in to make sure that you don't drop out that top 10.
Final question then: if Brighton get into the Champions League,
no, still won't watch it.
So you wouldn't get a buy ticket at the ground.
I'll go to a live game if it's offered, but it's still very 75% a no. Yeah, it's I can't stand Champions League.
You being a Gills fan, I mean, it'll probably never happen in my lifetime. I would just get to the Championship, or League One would, right? Okay, so to just summarise, and we both hate the Champions League.
Yeah.
The new format is going to be appalling. I mean, last season's format, if you finished third, you dropped into the Europa League, didn't you? So there was like a little bit, even then there was a bit of a fail-safe. But apparently this season, if you lose a playoff, if you finish 9th to 24th and you lose, you're out. There's no sort of safety net into the Europa League. But as I say, there's going to be quite a few chances for them teams to win a few games and finish in that top 8. And if they don't have a playoff, it's like a secondary chance. So the second round, we've got basically look forward to lots of the same teams season in season. And
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's what we've got to look forward to. Well, brilliant. Well, thank you for being on my first podcast. I'm going to wrap it up there, having a bit of a rant and a moan. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, like and comments. Make sure you drop comments to say if you actually agree with us or maybe you don't agree with us. Maybe you actually love the Champions League. You think it's a great way forward. I mean, this is what the old comments section's for. I'll try and reply to all the comments. I'd like to thank Lee as well for being on my first Chewing the Fat podcast. Bit of a last minute thing, and I basically gave you the subject last minute to talk about. So thanks for adapting to that. And I will see you at a future Football Ground and a future podcast.
Yes, thank you very much. Always a pleasure and great to be your first guest. And yes, we'll see you hopefully on my podcast very soon. And we'll try and catch you again this season.
Look forward to it. Many thanks. Thanks again, Lee.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the first episode of Chewing the Fat. And again, thanks to Lee for being my first guest. Make sure you check out my ground hopping videos. On the screen now are the grounds I've been to already. I'm looking to achieve the 160 mark, which is all the grounds in the UK, in all the top leagues. I think I'm on about 58 or 59 now. So make sure you check them out. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button, like and comment, and I try and reply to all the comments. So let us know if you agree with me and Lee, or you disagree and you actually like the Champions League and you think the new format will be great. Let us know in the comments and I'll try and get back to all the comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye for now.